But I also want to say a big thank you to Melva and to Lynn, who are our education chairs on our board, for putting together what I believe is a really thoughtful program today and a critical component. It is a difficult and unique situation that we're all in. I will remind each and every one of you that you are not in this alone, and that if you need something, you email, you pick up the phone, you call a colleague, you call me, it doesn't matter. We are all in this together, and reach out to one another. So without further ado, I am going to, wait, I don't think I finished. Did I say Lynn too? Oh my God. Guys, I've been on Zoom calls since 8:30 this morning.
I'm here, Nancy.
So Lynn and Melva have put together some amazing programming, and it's exciting to kind of kick what will ultimately be our 2021 educational programming off with this particular topic as we roll into the holidays and life is different than we know it. And so thank you to both of them for their thoughtfulness, their focus, everything else. Whitney, thank you for running the back end. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Melva, who will welcome our amazing, amazing guest speaker today. Thank you all.
Thanks, Nancy. Happy holidays, everybody. And I'm going to bring you warm greetings with sprinkles of joy. My name is Melva LaJoy Jones, and I'm really excited to kick off today's educational journey and then leave you shortly with our fantastic expert. But before we do, there are 3 ways that we would like you to approach today's conversation. First, we love your engagement in the chat. Please continue that. And also, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to put that in the question and answer at the bottom of your screen. We'll strive to get to as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. Second, we ask that any comments that you make in the chat are rooted in kindness and speak about your individual experience as opposed to outing others' experience. And third, as Nancy said, these are times like no other. Change is hard, and while our professional today is a certified life coach, she, nor I, nor Lynn, nor Nancy are licensed mental health professionals. None of us are. But if you are someone on this webinar today and you need additional support, we want to encourage you to seek that out. So with that, let me tell you about Jennie. Jennie Wolfe is a certified ontological, hopefully I've said that right, coach who supports clients in achieving their personal and business goals. She's a pro. She's been doing it for a decade. I met Jennie earlier this year as an attendee at a women's conference. I'm not going to name the conference because what I will tell you, and Jennie knows this, her session is the session that I participated in for the entire time. We'll just leave it there. I found Jennie to be thoughtful. She is gracious with her resources and deeply engaging. And so with that, I'm going to go away, let Jennie take us on this journey to managing complex change. Thank you, Jennie.
Thank you, Melva. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Live Events Coalition for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here. I just want to make sure that you guys can see my screen. I know that we were having some issues with that.
We can see it. Yes.
Great. Awesome. So I like to start out, Melva, you did a great job at saying some things, but yes, I am a certified life coach. I am not a mental health professional. I do coach in mindset. But I also like to start off any talk that I do with just saying that there's different languaging for all these types of things. So I just invite you to approach this with an open mind and see what you come away with it. And you might have questions at the end, and hopefully we'll have time to answer any of those. Melva did a wonderful job about introducing me. I really appreciate that. And I know that probably people are wondering, what is ontological? So my training is actually in life and leadership training, but it's an ontological style, which means that ontology is the study of being. It's who we are being in the world. It's like how we're showing up. It's not what actually we're doing, but it's actually how we're doing it and who we're being in the process. So the example that I always like to give with this is, if you're climbing up a mountain, you could do it. There's a million ways you could do it, but if two people are climbing up a mountain, one could be complaining the whole time and being like, this sucks. And the other one could just be trucking up and just going along. Those are ways of being. And that's essentially what I coach my clients around. But I also really like structures and systems. So we also do that. It's kind of like a two-part thing. So today, what I'm going to share with you is actually a structure or a framework that you can actually put into practice. And I hope that will support you during this challenging time. A little bit more about me is that my company is called Wolfe. It's a coaching company. We do VIP coaching, so private coaching, and then we also do coaching for people that are new in business, about a year into business. That's through the Well and Wild method, and it's a hybrid coaching program. I also have a background in nutrition, in yoga, so I actually started my coaching journey in the wellness industry, which is really a huge emphasis of what I do and looking at people's life holistically. I tend to work with a lot of business owners. However, we are looking at life like in a holistic view and making sure that we're improving in all different areas. So let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. So just a little bit about my company and what I'm about. High performing leaders and individuals and entrepreneurs. We are a no BS holistic coaching program that provides alternate perspective, structure, and accountability to break patterns and create alignment so that you can own your brilliance and generate unshakable joy, because checking all the boxes does not equate to a fulfilled life. And one of the things that I have found that I think is really important, and I know that you guys have talked, you had a therapist in here, I think last time talking. And so coaching, there's a lot of coaches out there these days, and there's a lot of confusion in terms of the differences between coaching, consulting, and therapy. So I like to go over those differences, and more so the reason that I think this is important is sometimes just understanding what you may need. And also sometimes it's a combination of them. But I think what's more important is understanding what coaching actually is, because there are some coaches out there that, at least through the International Coaching Federation, are doing consulting and not coaching. So I want to distinguish the difference. So we'll start with therapy. This is the one that probably people are most familiar with, but it's the treatment of mental health, right? It usually starts with a diagnosis and it's a treatment. So this person is an expert and they're actually guiding someone through they've started with a diagnosis and they're working to heal something. Whereas in the coaching world, we view the person as already whole and complete, that there is actually nothing to heal. So I relate to my clients as whole and complete, which can be a really powerful thing. In terms of consulting is an expert giving advice. It's usually something that's like very strategic, and they're actually telling them how to do something. Whereas in the coaching world, or at least how I do my coaching, is that I actually trust that my clients know what to do. I just ask the right questions so that they can actually get there. I find that this is really powerful because it has people feel more empowered when they walk away. But I will say that a lot of my clients, and even myself, I have done all three of these, and sometimes even them simultaneously. So there is a lot of overlap. There are a lot of therapists out there that also do coaching, and vice versa. There's a lot of coaching that also does there's a lot of coaches that also do consulting. So I hope that that's clear to you, but let's go ahead and jump into the good stuff and some coaching. So the goal today is to talk about managing complex change, quieting the internal narrative and managing complex change as the events industry continues to grapple with uncertainty. So here's the thing, is that there's always uncertainty. And oh, you haven't seen the slides. I just saw that. Oh, so sorry, guys. Thank you for letting me know, Whitney. Just give me a moment. I'm not sure why you guys aren't seeing the slides.
There we go. It's changing now, Jenny.
There you go. Aw, bummer. Okay, well, I have this pretty slide for you guys. Can you see it now?
We can see it now. So we're on the same page. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. All right, well, there's the other slides. Okay, so our goal is to quiet this internal narrative, and I want to give you a 5-piece framework that you can actually implement in your everyday life, which the result of uncertainty usually is these 5 things. We're looking at confusion, anxiety, overwhelm, incremental change. So what I mean by this is gradual change. Like we may see a little bit of change, but it's actually not the change that we really want. It's not that significant change. Frustration, and false starts. So false starts are we start something and then we stop. We start something and then we stop. And the thing that the reason that I think this is important is whether you're looking at your business or your life, we're usually looking at growing. And the tendency is usually we're experiencing one of these things when we're up against something, when we're up against uncertainty. So pandemic or not, we usually are up against uncertainty. So I hope that you can really take a holistic view and looking at something that you want to create in your life. It can be anything. As we go through this, maybe take one thing as we step through this framework. Okay. So like we just talked about, these are the 5 things that we'll be addressing today: confusion, anxiety, and overwhelm, gradual change, frustration, false starts. These are all of the things that we're experiencing, and we're going to talk about the missing pieces that actually cause this, and so that we can live more intentionally. So I want you to see if you guys relate to this. I'm going to walk you through this cycle. This is an example of what I do. It's called an overwhelm cycle that I walk my clients through. It's actually to distinguish how we get into overwhelm or how we get into frustration or any of those other things that we were just talking about. So I want you to start, we're going to start at where the arrow is pointing, where it's like have a win. And yours might look a little bit different, but just imagine this for a moment. Let's say you have a win, something really great happens. And then you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I am great. And then you're like, you know what? I'm going to do more because you're feeling really good about yourself. So maybe you take on more. Now, maybe you're like feeling really, really great. And someone asks you to do something else and you say yes. And you've said yes now to all of these different things. And now you're like, oh my gosh, I am overwhelmed. So now we're at the top, we're at the peak. So I want you to think of that moment when you get to that point where you're like, oh my gosh, there's just way too much stuff going on, and what that feels. That's your peak. And your what we call is like your gradual, like your lead up to that may look a little bit different. And then we're going to start to come down on the other side of the circle, which is then you're trying to address it. You're like, I'm going to do more faster. I can get this done. And then your inner critic starts to rev up because you're not able to keep up because you've overcommitted now. And so now your inner critic starts to say, oh my gosh, you can't do this. You suck, whatever it is, whatever horrible things that our subconscious mind says to us, which we all have them. And then that leads to procrastination because now you're like, I don't want to do it. This is really common for perfectionists, but this is also really common just for people in general. So then we start to procrastinate and then things start to pile up. We start to feel more overwhelmed. And then this is typically when we start to neglect ourselves. So what I mean by this is like we throw wellness off the board. Maybe we're not sleeping well. We stop working out. Whatever it is, we start to not actually take care of ourselves. And then it may look like quitting and canceling things. And I think of this as like you're like boat sinking and you're just trying to throw things off the boat because you're like, I don't know what else to do. This is typically burnout, or it can just be fatigue or some expression of what burnout might look for you. And then typically what happens is we're like, okay, this is it. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to take care of myself. A lot of people do this the first of the year, right? So I'm going to start working out. I'm going to put things back in order. I'm going to organize everything. I'm going to do this. And then the cycle, this is the sad part, and then the cycle starts all over again. So again, yours might look a little bit different, but the point that I'm driving here is that it's a cycle. And we think that we're going on an upswing when we start to organize things and have a win, but then we're just getting back on what I like to call is like the hamster wheel. And we're just going in circles and going in circles. And so today, my goal is for us to intervene this cycle and actually to create a different way of being rather than this default way of being. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So these are the things I want you to think about this. And maybe if you have a piece of paper or in the notes or in the chat, you can also do this. I want you to identify which one of these that you struggle with the most. Is it confusion? Is it anxiety and overwhelm? Is it gradual change? Is it frustration? Or is it false starts? So I want you to just write down 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. You can write down which one it is. And we're going to do something at the end. I'm curious to see how this all works out. So once you figure that out, you can share it in the chat if you want to. I know for me, my one that I struggle with the most is probably number 2. But we can also experience all of them. So if you're like, oh my gosh, all of them, just choose one that you maybe are experiencing the most right now. Okay. So this is the framework I'm going to walk you through. I want you to start just at the first part. So it's vision, truth, rewards, support, action. When we put all of these things together, this is actually how we change, or I like to say how we transform. Really, in the coaching world, what we're looking at doing is we're looking at shifting and changing our being, which is actually how we that is actually transformation instead of just small changes that it's easy to go back, right? So as we get off of this cycle, off of the overwhelm cycle, we're actually looking at generating a new way of being. And this framework, this 5-piece framework that I'm sharing with you today will support you to do that in any area of your life, really. So, let's go ahead and start to look at what you may be missing. And you're going to also put a number down for this one too. Which of these 5 things are you missing when it comes to that thing that you're looking at changing in your life, that you're looking at creating in your life? Are you missing the vision? Are you missing the connection with your unique skills and true nature? And what I mean by this is like, do you really understand who you are at your core? Are you in touch with like what your unique skills are and what you have to offer the world? Are you present to what your impact is? This is number 2. Number 3 is celebration, rewards, and incentives. This one's really common, I think, for us to miss because we're often not celebrating ourselves. I want you to think about the last win that you had, the last achievement or the last accomplishment you had, small or little, it doesn't even matter. Did you celebrate yourself? Did you reward yourself? Do you set incentives on the things that you're wanting to achieve? Number 4 is support and resources. Are you leaning on support? Do you have, like, you all have support because you're here, because you have Live Events Coalition, so you have support, you have resources. Are you using them? Are you asking for support? And number 4 is, do you have a plan? Do you have benchmarks? Do you have milestones? Do you have stepping stones? Whatever you want to call these, but actually a plan to get to where you want to go. So which of these 1 through 5 are you missing? Go ahead and write down which one that is for you. Okay, so here's what we're going to do is we're going to actually step through this framework and we're going to talk about when we're missing one of these, what it actually leads to. And then I'm going to give you actual practices to implement these changes, which is the most important part, right? Because knowledge is great, but if you don't practice what you know, then it just is there. So we're going to walk through each of these. So the first one that we're going to get rid of, if we don't have envision, then that means that it leads to confusion. So we could be doing all of the other 4 things, but we're going to be feeling confused. We're going to have bouts of confusion. We're going to have a confusion cycle as opposed to an overwhelm cycle. It's going to be something that we're constantly coming back to. So I want you to think about this is like, if you're lacking a vision, it's going to lead to confusion. And when we think about mission, vision, and values for business, we can also do this for life. Vision is the place of where we're headed. Mission is how we're going to get there. And then our values is basically what we're packing with us. I like to think of this as like the car analogy, like you're getting in a car and our vision is like, where are we headed? Are we going to California? And then our mission is how are we going to get there? And then the values is the baggage, like the stuff that we're taking with us, the things that we're packing so that we have these things along the way. So do you know where you're going? I call this, and the method that I do is I call this the funnel vision. So where are you going? Thinking about that. And as we're going through these, you can start to write these down as what is your vision? What are the things that you want? You may not have a vision right now. That is okay. You can create one. So I want to think of this as funnel vision. So we start with this big vision of what we're doing. It's a detailed, long vision. I'm actually going to give you directions about how to do this. And then we go into what is the experience that I want to have? And we can come up with a mission statement here. What is the experience that I actually want? And then we come up with a measure. Usually this is what people start with. Usually people start with the goal. Like, I want to make X amount of money, right? Like we usually start with that SMART goal and we forget these things at the top. This is so important because it doesn't have the experience that's associated with it. And then we're just focused on checking boxes and actually not creating or being or looking at how we're showing up in the pursuit of that goal. And then the last part of that, stepping stones. But the main thing here is really understanding where are you going? So number 2 is truth. So I will talk about this. So if the truth part is missing, even if we have the other 4 parts of this, then we usually will have anxiety or overwhelm or some form of that. So this typically means that we're lacking connection with the truth. And I know this seems kind of harsh, but really it's probably no surprise to you that we tell ourselves lies, or maybe it is a surprise to you, that we tell ourselves lies all the time. We make up stuff. We are human making, what do I say? Human meaning making machines. We are meaning making machines. So we make things mean stuff all the time. And a lot of what we do in coaching is actually intervene and see what the truth is. And so where are you maybe telling lies to yourself? This can lead to overwhelm and anxiety. So I posted this not too long ago and people were like, oh my gosh, I love this. And it's so true. Like, here's the thing is you are good enough. Actually, you are probably overqualified, but let's just be humble. Like, here's the thing is that you're probably overqualified for the things that you're thinking about doing. And because you keep on thinking about it or you keep on making up stories, that can also often lead to anxiety or overwhelm, or you're making up things about the future. So it's important for us to come back to the truth and who you are at your core. There's exercises that we often do in coaching to figure out what this is, and we'll go through one today. Another part of this of connecting to the truth is actually it's truth and then trust. Is trusting the process, trusting yourself. And I have this here, this conversation between the mind, the heart, and the spirit. Whatever you want to think of, something higher than you, or you could say your gut, your intuition. But this conversation goes like this. The mind is like, this is uncomfortable. And the heart goes, growth and change tend to be. Mind goes, well, it could end terribly. What if? And then the heart goes, or it could turn out better. And the mind goes, let's analyze this more. And then the heart goes, let's love more. And then the spirit goes, trust, follow me. I know the way. And I think this is so important, is that this is why this tends to be really empowering for people, because when we start to trust ourselves and trust the process, then we actually start to develop this relationship with ourselves that maybe wasn't really there before. And that can definitely be a solution. I don't want to say a solution, but definitely like a intervention for anxiety or overwhelm. And we'll go to 3, rewards. So without rewards, if we have all the other 4 components, but we don't reward ourselves, we don't incentivize ourselves, then that usually leads to gradual change. We're like, okay, cool. Like, you can coast. But this is a really big difference that I see my clients make a really big leap with, is when we start adding in rewards. I find it so important. It tends to be the thing that we often overlook. So we'll talk about that. So incremental change, lacking rewards, incentives, celebrations. So again, I think I asked you guys this earlier. When was the last time that you accomplished something it could be anything. It could be something that was scary. It could be something that wasn't. But when was the last time that you accomplished something? Did you celebrate yourself? Did you reward yourself? So think of this as like dangling the carrot. This is impactful because when we have something that we really, really want and we incentivize ourselves, like, hey, when I actually do that thing, then I'm going to get that whatever. It could be something that you just really want. It could be a material thing. It could be, it doesn't have to be a material thing. It could just be like something that you really enjoy, a cup of tea. It can be simple, but it can also be big. And whatever makes sense for you. But the key here is actually doing something that you want. All right, so we're moving on here. So support. So well, you're gonna act like there's an X there. I forgot to put an X on that one. Oh, let's see. Here it is. Okay, so support. If we do not have support, or if we're not relying on support, which this is the thing, is that we all have support, we just need to look for it. So if we're not relying on our support, then we usually end up being frustrated, even if we have the other things. So this is not asking for support or for resources, and or not expressing gratitude. This is another thing, is like actually looking at what we're grateful for. I know that sounds cheesy, and I get that, but this is actually something that is super important. And a lot of the things that we will be talking about today are simple things, but they're actually really impactful. So I want you to think about who is on your team. This could be business, this could be family, this could be friends, it could be just mentors that you have, but who's on your team? I think of this as like your pack. Who are your people that support you, that see what your greatness is, that you can call? Making a list of these people, it can be really impactful for you, because then you actually like, oh, these are my people. Who can support you? Doing a gratitude list, actually understanding and looking at and voicing what you're grateful for. All right, we're moving on to the last one, action. So this is an action plan. Here's the thing, is that false starts. This is like, I started something, we felt like we had a really great start, and then all of a sudden I like look back and I'm like, oh, I didn't do it, right? This is really common. People starting things and not following through. And this is often because we do not have an action plan. We do not have some stepping stones to actually get there. So the thing that I think is most important here is having a bigger plan is really important. But I often find that it's what we do daily that actually has the biggest impact. Obviously, it's what we're actually doing on a daily basis that's going to change our life, or that's going to transform something for us. So I do what I call an impact list. This is also planning tomorrow, today. So thinking about what is actually the thing that is going to have the biggest impact on me getting to the place that I want to be getting. So this is different than a to-do list. This is actually thinking about you could have a separate to-do list, like of all the things that you need to do, but this is more so of like, what is the thing that's going to have the biggest impact? It's typically the thing that you're scared of. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but like eat the frog first thing in the morning, like eat the frog. That sounds really weird, but it's doing your hardest task first, really sets you up to win the day and to feel like you're making an impact and you're doing the things that you really want to be doing in your life, in your business. All right. So I'm all about knowledge, but I'm more about putting it into practice. So let's talk about how we can put it into practice and actually transform. So whatever, there's going to be there's a lot of ways to put this stuff into practice. So here's the thing, is that what I'm giving you is just things to consider. it is not the right way. It's not the way you have to do it. It's just what I have found to be impactful. But trust yourself. Step 2 of this process, trust yourself that you actually know what you need to be doing. That's going to cultivate the best relationship with yourself and have you be empowered and have you feel empowered. So if we start with step 1, I'm going to give you a practice to consider for each of these steps, and then we'll start to close out. So here's the practice to consider for if you're missing vision, if you're missing the vision. And you can maybe think about what you wrote down, which part were you missing the most when we talked about earlier? Were you missing 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? So we're going to start vision is number 1. And then this is the practice that you want to focus on. So number 1 practice to consider is write a detailed long vision, including what you're experiencing, who is with you, and what has happened and who you are being. So this is so important. People tend to avoid this, but I can't express to you how important it is to actually have a detailed vision of what you want to be experiencing. What does it feel like? You act as if it's the day. So you're going to think like a year out. If we're like, okay, the end of 2021, today is December, 10th, 2021. And this is what has happened. And this is how I feel. And this is what I'm experiencing. And this helps us get really clear about where we're going. All right, let's move on to number 2, truth. So if this is the one that you marked down, you can consider this practice. So stop shoulding all over yourself. So what this is about is shoulding is not, that's not really a word, by the way, but I think we're going to make it a word, because we tend to should ourselves out of situations or making up. This is the making up of the story, and we're meaning making machines. We're often saying, I should have done that. I should do this. Blah, 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 blah. I should. You should do this. You should do that. And I want you to if you're going to take this one on, do a should detox. And I want you to replace it when you catch yourself finding the should or saying the should, ask yourself, is it something that I actually want to do? If it is, then do it. If it's not, then stop shoulding on yourself. Connect with what you truly want. This is it. Connect with what you truly want, what excites you, and tell somebody. So this is a really great way to like detox all of the stuff that you've been telling yourself, and then to identify what you really want, what excites you, and tell somebody and tell someone, because that's the thing where you can start to actually get momentum, because you're speaking your truth. You're speaking your truth to someone, even though that might be scary. All right, number 3, rewards. So attach a reward to that thing that you keep on avoiding or are scared of. So what is that one thing that you keep on avoiding? Maybe you've been thinking about doing. This could be like a pivot in your business. This could be asking someone out. This could be making a phone call. I mean, it can be really simple stuff. It could be going to the gym. Maybe not now. It could be going for a walk. Whatever it is, what is the thing that you keep on avoiding, that you're having a hard time actually doing? And celebrate it with a reward once you complete it. So put an incentive on it of something that you actually want. So maybe you've been like eyeing a really cute pair of boots, or maybe you want to make yourself a really amazing meal. Whatever it is, incentivize yourself and start that process so that you can start getting going. Dangle that carrot out in front of you. Moving on to support. So number 4, so make a list of who can support you in your endeavor and create support structures that actually work for you. Here's the thing. There are so many people, gurus, coaches, all these things out there that are going to tell you how to do something and tell you, here's the structure. I mean, I'm even kind of doing it right now, right? What matters is you actually identifying what works for you. Really thinking about, like, it's great to use someone else's structure and try it on, but make it yours, make it actually work for you. And use those support structures that do work for you, get rid of the ones that don't. And same thing with people, talk to the people that actually support you, surround yourself with those people, share with them what you're up to and what you want. All right, and action. So this is the action plan. So without this part, we're going to lead to false starts, right? So come up with a few benchmarks and plan tomorrow today more often than not. So plan tomorrow today more often than not and come up with a few benchmarks. This is such a simple thing, right? Planning tomorrow today, but it is so impactful. And I feel like this is the thing that has changed the game for me. And the other thing is relating to this as yeah, consistent. A lot of people think consistent in their head needs to be every single day, but I like to reframe consistency as more often than not. Just do this more often than not. You don't have to set your standards so high that you got to do it every day and be really rigid with yourself, but just try to do it more often than not. And that kind of applies with all of these things that are coming up. So here it is, putting it all together. When we put the vision, the truth, rewards, support, and action all together, this is how we actually create change. And that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much. I do have a few gifts for you guys that we'll be sending out after this. I think Melville will be sending it out to you. There is a 5-day, I have a free 5-day video training that helps you get clarity and productivity. It's called Stuck to Limitless. So it's really simple. The videos are like 2 minutes long and you have action items. And then if you're curious in exploring coaching, there's also a complimentary discovery call. And those are at JennieWolfe.com at LEC for Live Events Coalition. And you can access those there, and I'll hand it back to Melva.
Thank you, Jenny. This is so good. And I love, I'm just going to say, I love that we have a website just for us. It makes me feel very exclusive. But we are just so grateful that you've given us a strategy, a framework to, and I'm looking at the comments of, let me see here. What does this say? Oh, we have a question. Oh, thanks, Ray. Enjoy golf. So from Randall, this year, most of us lost not just our jobs, but a significant piece of our identity. Wow, that's huge. Any tips for dealing with the grief of that? Thank you, Randall, for asking that question. I think that speaks to so many of us. Jenny, any thoughts?
Yes. Yeah. You know, Randall, that's a really great question. And I think that this is a really important question too, because, and I first want to say, I want to acknowledge you for using the word grief, because I think that this is often something that people think that grief is only associated with the losing a loved one, but it's losing anything. It's losing anything at all. So it totally makes sense that, that you would be experiencing that. And I've experienced that as well in my life of, you know, leaving an industry and coming into a different one. And so I can completely relate. In terms of tips of dealing with that, I think it's so important for you to allow yourself to be in the process. One thing that I did not share today that I think that I stand completely behind is this concept of be, do, have. And we often have it backwards. We often think I have to have something in order to do something, in order to be something. And that's usually when we, so that can often lead to something that we feel lost when we're in that. I need to have something in order to do something, in order to be something. So if you start to reverse that, in your mind, and I know that's a pretty high level concept, but if you start to think about who you want to be being in the world, then you do the things that you want to do and you'll have the things that you want to have. But I think the most important thing in this is just to be with it and know that and trust the process. I mean, that's part of trusting the process. I think, you know, maybe even using that vision exercise of thinking about how you want to be feeling and what you actually want, and that there is something possibly better for you that is coming your way. And I know that probably is a little frustrating to hear right now, but that's my best answer that I have for you. And I hope that that's supportive.
Lynn, were you going to say something?
I had a question. I just wanted to ask. My husband taught me a tip years ago, just about a simple reframing tip. And so when I get really negative, I try to spin it and think about what's positive about the situation. And I know that's a very simple thing, but I think coaches work deeper with reframing structures. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that might help us just as a coping mechanism in day to day going through this period?
Yeah, I think, it is a really simple thing, right? To just reframe to the positive. I think, and it is often the simple things that work. So there's a saying that's find the opportunity in the obstacle. And I find that is something that has changed the game for me, that often we are quick to judge that something's good and that something is bad. And the fact is that we actually do not know that. So yes, like it's not a good thing to lose your job, right? And that may feel bad, but we're quick to be like, this is the, like, oh my gosh, like this is terrible, but there actually might be something better. And I'm speaking from experience that, like, had I not walked away from my wellness business that I had, and I experienced that grief. I didn't really realize like what I was doing at the time, but I had built this whole business, and I was like, oh my gosh, wait, what did I do? And that I would not be where I'm at now. And I would not be doing what I'm doing either. So like, I just, and I'm so grateful for what I'm able to do now. So I think we're quick to judge whether something's good or bad. So I guess my tip for that would be find the obstacle in the opportunity. There's a great book, by Ryan Holiday that's called, The Obstacle is the Way. And he studies Stoicism. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I love anything Stoicism, and Ryan Holiday is definitely an expert in that way. So The Obstacle is the Way is the book.
I love that comment. I love the comment. Find the opportunity in the obstacle. I think it's great, and we could all sort of latch onto that right now.
Jenny, it looks like we have another question. So, and it's from another Jenny. Thank you so much. It says, can you explain how rewarding yourself fixes gradual change?
Yeah, good question. So yes, so I want you to think about it this way. Like, if you're incentivized to do something, like, so basically the problem is that what we're basically saying is that gradual change, typically the thing that is missing is reward. So I just want to clarify that could be a thing that is missing is reward. So the thought is, if we actually want to make a big leap, if we incentivize ourselves, then we're more likely to do the things. It catalyzes the process. It catalyzes the process.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just chatting that if anyone has any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or the question and answer, because I want to give space for that since we have such a tremendous resource. And then I have something to close us out, but it looks like Nancy, did you have a question you wanted to add, or?
Not at this point. I just wanted to be back in the group.
Thank you. Jenny, you're back. Thanks for following up. So Jenny to Jenny, you can see there in the chat. So if you have a gradual change because it's not what you wanted to change, do you still reward yourself? I think I got that correctly.
So if you have, okay, I see it. So if you have a gradual change because it's not what you wanted to change. I'm not sure if I understand the question, Jenny. I'm sorry.
And Jenny, let me say this. Jenny, I think it's Jenny Howard. The good news is you can follow up with Jenny after today's webinar to talk through this in greater detail. I feel bad that we may not be understanding your question, but the support and resources are still there after today.
Yeah, Jenny, maybe,
Oh, she said, okay.
okay. Yeah, Jenny, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And maybe I didn't explain it. You know, I might have not explained it well too, so that might be on me. But feel free to message me or contact me on my website. I'm happy to talk to you about that.
Okay. And then let me just check the question and answer. Oh, good. Great, Jenny Howard. Jenny Howard, I'm glad you're going to reach out. And I have something for the group that I was thinking about. How do you close this out before the holiday? And so just bear with me, because I think this speaks to what you were talking about, Jenny. And again, thank you so much. And what we may all be feeling. And so again, stick with me. It's from The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. And maybe you've heard this. Jenny's laughing, maybe she's heard this. So in the spirit of the holidays, here's what I'll say. It reads, for what it's worth, it's never too late, or in my case, too early to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. Stop whenever you want. You can change or stay the same. There are no rules to this thing. We can make the best or the worst of it. I hope you make the best of it. And I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things you've never felt before. I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. If you find that you're not, I hope you have the courage to start all over again. So with that, I will say cheers to 2021, wishing the best for everybody this holiday season, and stay safe.
Oh, that was lovely, Melba. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jenny.
Happiest of holidays. Jenny, thank you so very much. We so appreciate it. And you're now part of the family. So
Thank you
be
so
careful.
much, everyone, and happy holidays to everybody. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye, guys.